Hello angels and welcome to another YouTube tutorial. Yay! Today we're going to be learning about Zustand, not necessarily learning Zustand, but we're going to learn how to use Zustand with Vanilla JavaScript. And usually Zustand is used with React. We could even use it with Vue, but this time I wanted us to use it with just Vanilla JavaScript. If you look at the screen in front of you, you can see that. Okay, so you can see that if I type in here, yeah, and all these are powered by Zustand, which is like our global state in this particular situation. If you're not interested in watching a video, just I have an article I've written on this, it's in the description. And with all that introduction, let us hop on the code on how to do this. Okay, so we are in Visual Studio Code, and I have this empty folder that I have brought in. I called it YT Zustand Vanilla. You could call it whatever you want. And here we're going to, create our application. So I'm opening a new terminal, and let me change this to command prompt. So we're going to say npm create vid dot. Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm just going to call this let's say Zustand Zeus Vanilla. Okay, you can call it whatever you want. So I'm going to say Vanilla, then I'm choosing JavaScript, then npm install. All right, now I'm just going to do npm run dev. So now let's just go to the browser. So now this is what we have. And that's coming from this main.js. So I'm just going to select all and delete it. Okay. And the next thing we want to do is I'm going to open a new terminal, change this to command line, and then I'm going to just install Zustand. So that's going to be npm install Zustand. All right. Okay. So now there is nothing here, which is not bad. Then in our index.html file, I'm just going to create I'm going to put in two elements. The first one is just a normal p tag. I'm going to put 0 there. Then I'm going to give it an ID. I'm going to call the ID display, and then we're going to create another element, which is a button, and I'm going to just say click, and then the ID is btn. Okay, so now it's here. Okay, back to our main.js file. I'm going to be bringing in our Zustand. So that's going to be import, and from Zustand. Now it has something called create store. So I'm bringing in create store, and now I'm going to bring in the elements that we're working with. So first is going to be const display is equal to document dot get element by ID. That's going to be display, not display, display. And then we're going to say const btn is equal to document dot get element by ID btn. Okay, and okay, I'm just going to say display the inner text, equal to, let's say, 60. I I said inner text. Why did I type in 60? Why isn't this changing to 60? Okay, let me just quickly take a look at that. Oh, oh god, my bad. So here, this Zustand comes with vanilla, so there's supposed to be vanilla here. So that's what was shouting. Okay, yeah. So with that, yeah, so now it's 60. Sorry about that. So now let's make use of Zustand as our store. So we're just going to say const store equal to create store, which is what we brought up, and we've called that function. And now we're going to inside it, we're going to put in a anonymous callback function inside. So we're just going to do that, and we're going to return an object. So first we're going to put another parenthesis, and we're returning this object. So we're going to say count, which is what we're working with for now. We're going to say count is 4, right? And instead of putting our 60 in here, we're just going to say store dot get state, and then we say count. So now instead of 60, it should be 4. As you can see, maybe I should. Okay, 4. So that is not just at the edge of the screen. All right, so that's 4. Now, of course, if we click on this, nothing happens. But first, let's even add an event listener to the button. So that's going to be btn dot add event listener. I can say click, and just another anonymous function there. And then we're going to say store dot set state, and what the state we want to set. If you know Zustand already, you know what I'm already doing. Then this is going to be count. Then we're going to say store dot get state dot count plus 1. Now this is what would happen when we click, but we want, when we click, we want it to automatically just, you know, react and change. And to do that, it's just something very simple. We're going to subscribe to the store. Like the store comes with a subscription, so we're going to say store dot subscribe. Then this has we'll pass in a callback function, and now here we have state. There's an argument that we could put there called state, and now we can now say display dot inner text is equal to state dot count. Right, so let me explain what is happening. Whenever we click, we are setting state, and whenever we set a state to this store, this subscribe is triggered. So when it's triggered, what we want to do is we want to put the updated count into our inner text. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. So if we save, if I go back now, if I click, you can see it's increasing. So this is a very, very, simple way. We could even stop here, and I mean, we have achieved our aim, but I feel like we could make it better. We could improve on the reactivities instead of making it like a full re-render. Okay, so which is what we're going to work in next. Before we move on to the rest of the code, before we work on the much more complex version of what we're trying to implement, let's have a pre-code explanation. So this is like an aside where I explain what we want to do so that it's easier to digest and people wouldn't be lost. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is that we're going to have special attributes in our input. So we're going to put special attributes. We could call this anything, but we are just going to go with having something called data dash special or data dash whatever we want to put equal to count. So please take note of the count. The count is going to serve as a key in what we are going to do. So remember the store, we've worked on the store already. The store the store has objects with values in it. So the store usually looks like this. It's like key value pair, thing, count, and then the value is 5, name, the value is Tunde in this situation. Now we're also going to have a subscription. We're also going to subscribe to store changes. This is where the magic happens. This is where the reactivity takes place, where we change the elements that we're working on. Okay. Now please don't forget, I said you should take note of the count. Yeah, so please don't forget. Now in our all bind, we're going to create an object. Let's just call it all binding stores. Yeah, probably when we're coding it's going to be something different. And now this particular object has, take note again, you can see count. So count. Now this, instead of storing the value, it's going to be, the key is going to be count. The value is going to be the element we want to change. Now this is a key. This is what I want us to take note of, is the element we want to change. So instead of going through the entire document to change a particular element, we are going to store this element and then change it when we need to, when the value has changed in the store. Then we'll come here and say, okay, what's the key that what is the element that has this key, and then we'll change it. Okay, and so when we click or when we type or whatever it is, then we trigger state changes in the state, which is up here, right? And then we affect the element. So it's just going to be when we trigger state change, we check what is the key, or what is the key that was changed. Yes, exactly. So let's say, for example, we say set state change, and then we're changing the count. Exactly. So we're just going to say, okay, what is the key in this all binding store that has count, and then we're just going to look for the element, and then we're going to make a change to that element based on the key. I hope with this explanation we'll be able to understand what we are going to code. So yeah, onto the code. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to comment these out, and I'm just going to save, and then in our index.html I'm going to bring in we'll start with the count first, or the count first, then we'll bring in an input. So for this here, I'm going to put a data attribute, and I'm just going to say data dash pack. You could call this, it could be, you could call it data something, data dash whatever. I'm just going to say data dash pack. That's what I'm using to identify what I want to use to bind. Yeah, so yeah, I know this process is a bit much, it's more complicated than what we just did, but it's more effective. Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. I'm going to say document dot query selector all. Or you know what? Here we could just say const all data elements. That's equal to document dot query selector all, not, and sorry, and then we're going to be selecting by the attribute, which is what the square brackets represent, and this is going to be data pack. Okay, and then here I'm just going to be say, let me just copy this. Okay, once let's say okay, nice. So all data element dot for each, then here I'm just going to say them. So what I want to do is I want to pick a key. So what do I mean by key? So like now this count is key. So what does this count mean? So remember, let's say for example you want let's look at what's it called, React, for example. So if you want to do name, you do something like this. You just you say name, you get. Now same thing, if it is view, you put the, you know, this, yeah. So that's what we are kind of doing here. So this count will represent what we are trying, what we are going to use to identify what we are binding, kind of, yeah. That's what we're trying to do here. So we're just binding this to this particular element. So that's what we're doing. So that's what I mean by the key. That's what we represent our key here. So I'm going to say const key is equal to lm dot get attribute, and then I'm going to say data pack. So I'm going to create an object here, and I'm going to call it all bindings. All right. So here I could say all bindings key. So why are we doing this? So what I'm just trying to say is that, let's say for example we have another let's say we have a h1, right, that also has data pack, yes, count. It means that every element with this key would be affected. So it's the same thing as if we had count here. I'm talking about React, on when we do count like this here, something like this, So you see once we change the count, it will affect both of them. So that's what we're kind of doing. So now we're giving it a key. which could be any key that you want. You could call it whatever you want. It can be count, it can be banana, it can be apple, whatever you want. So I'm going to say all bindings and then key. So if that doesn't exist, I'm just going to say or. Where's that on this keyboard? Okay, give me a moment. I'm new to this keyboard, so I don't know where the sign I'm looking for is. Okay, finally found it. Or then we say square bracket. So if this key is not in this, then we're just going to bring in a square bracket. Then I could say all bindings key dot push we're going to push the element inside, right? Fantastic. So I want to create a new function. I'm going to call this function binder, right? Let's put that up here. Function binder. So this is going to take 2 arguments. I'm going to call this prop, the property, and the element we want to affect. So that's prop and element. Okay. So here I'm going to say binder key, which is the prop, and then the element. Okay, fantastic. So so let's just put bind element. Okay, so I'm going to say element dot because now we're working with this, like this, whether it's h1, p tags, b, anything that has to do with like putting in a text in between. So that's what I'm doing. So that's element dot inner text is equal to store dot get state. Now this get state is going to return to us a it's going to return to us an object. So now we want to pick something from that object, and now I'm just going to put the square bracket, and we're going to pick based on the prop. Yeah, okay. So remember, the prop here is count, right? Here is count. So if we put count here, it's going to get this. So the count is coming from here. We're going to use it to pick this, and so you can see why we needed a key, right? And then we're going to bring in our subscription. I'm going to say store.subscribe state, and say element dot inner text is equal to state prop, because this state to is also going to give us an object. So so let's see how that works so far. We're back to our for. If we click, oops. Oh, okay, sorry. The event listener. Save. Works just like we intended to. Yeah, okay. So now what we need to put in mind is, what if we have what's it called, what if we have an input, for example. Yeah, how are we going to handle that? Okay, we're going to just follow the same logic, right? So I'm just going to put, let's say, a h1 here. I'm going to say banana, and I'm going to put this data pack. The key we're using here is name, and then I'm going to have an input. And then I'm going to say ID is equal to typer. I don't know, I just couldn't come up with something else in my head. All right, so we're going to bring in the typer. Okay, so I'm going to say const typer is equal to document dot get element by ID typer. Okay, so here then we're going to say name is, why is it saying undefined? We haven't, oh okay. It's looking for banana, so that's why I say undefined. Okay, so now if we put this and then we say John, for example, John, see, it just automatically knows that, oh, it's supposed to bind it straight up, like easy peasy. So we're going to add an event listener to the typer. Yeah, so we'll just put that down here. We're going to say typer dot add event listener, and then we're going to say input then we're going to say store the set state. What we want to do is we want to change the name here, so that's going to be name. So we're just going to say the target dot value. No, not yes. Okay. Let's see if that works. Save. Yeah, and that works. So guys, this, I know it's a bit longer and much more, you know, complicated than what we just did here with few lines of code, but this would not cost like a full render. It's just going to target the elements that we want to change per time, which is much more effective if you ask me. But feel free, if you feel like there's another way we could do this, to let me know in the comment section. If you've gotten to the end, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Please, if you've not subscribed, please do subscribe. Also like this video if you've learned something new, and I'll see you in the next one. Toodaloo.